There is a 400-year-old technique from Japan that helps anyone overcome laziness without needing effort or motivation, and almost nobody knows about it. You know that moment when you find yourself frozen in front of a to-do list, fully aware of what requires doing, yet you simply cannot begin. The great news is that this isn't laziness at all. Recent findings in neuroscience reveal that what we tend to label as laziness is actually a protective system within the brain. But what would you say if I told you that centuries prior to modern neuroscience, the samurai of Japan had already figured out exactly how to bypass this mental barrier? They called it Kyojutsu, an ancient philosophy centered on a psychological interplay between truth and illusion that turned even the most challenging conflicts into movements that felt simple, natural, and almost effortless. And today you will learn how to bring this into your own life so that motivation is something you never have to rely on again. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like and hit the bell so you never miss future content. Now let's get back to it. The reality behind laziness. Let's face it, you're never lazy when it comes to things that bring you pleasure. Have you ever noticed this? Spending endless hours on TikTok, binge, watching 7 episodes of a series back to back, or sitting for 5 hours straight playing a game without ever leaving your chair. No hardship, no pushback, zero strain. But the moment it's time to study, to train, to work, or to finally begin that life-changing project, suddenly everything becomes unbearably heavy. You freeze up, your mind starts making excuses, and this brings us to the first major shift in perspective. The issue isn't you. It's not about lacking discipline or willpower. In reality, research conducted by neuroscientists at Stanford University shows that procrastination isn't really about managing time poorly. It's about failing to manage emotions. Whenever the brain links discomfort, anxiety, or even fear to a task, it triggers a defense mechanism, and the label we attach to this mechanism is laziness. But guess who recognized this phenomenon 400 years ahead of modern science? The samurai. And this is exactly where Kyojutsu enters the picture, the way of the samurai. The term Kyojutsu comes from merging two words Kyo meaning falsehood, illusion, or disguise, and Jutsu meaning truth, technique, or reality. In essence, this translates to the following. Samurai did not charge headfirst into battle when the odds were against them. They understood that victory frequently came from using the opponent's own force against them, crafting illusions, disguises, and unpredictable maneuvers that caused the enemy to defeat themselves. And here is where it gets striking. This idea isn't limited to combat. It applies to everyday life. Because your true adversary isn't laziness, it's your approach to dealing with it. If you attempt to fight your own resistance through brute force, you'll lose. But if you become skilled at reading the signs, understanding the source of the blockage, and turning it to your benefit, what once appeared as an insurmountable barrier transforms into an open gateway. According to a researcher from Harvard University, the human brain isn't built to actively pursue effort. Instead, its primary goal is to conserve energy whenever possible. Whenever it senses that a task might demand more energy than seems worthwhile, it activates resistance, which we frequently mistake for laziness. The categories of resistance according to Kyojutsu teach that every instance of resistance, every blockage stems from one of 3 specific sources. Once you grasp this, you can unlock any task. The first is resistance to the method. This arises when the approach you're using to complete a task simply doesn't match the way you naturally think or operate. For instance, forcing yourself to type directly onto a computer when your thoughts actually flow better on paper, or attempting to study with music playing when your brain functions best in complete quiet. The second category is time resistance. Maybe you're scheduling a task during a window when your body simply isn't cooperating. Your peak energy arrives in the morning, yet you're pushing yourself to work late at night, or perhaps the reverse is true. The third and most impactful is resistance to purpose. You know that task you absolutely cannot start no matter how much you push yourself. Often, it probably shouldn't be on your list in the first place. Either it no longer serves any purpose, or it never truly did. And this brings us to a difficult yet freeing realization. You aren't lazy, you're simply out of sync. A study from the University of Melbourne found that 79% of individuals who abandon personal projects don't do so due to weak discipline, but because at some level they recognize that the project lacks connection to what genuinely matters to them. And here's the truly fascinating part. The samurai possessed a technique that was so straightforward yet so potent that procrastination became nearly impossible. A technique anyone can apply to any type of task, and it begins even before you start thinking about taking action. Interested in learning how? Get ready, because we've now reached the crucial turning point. The samurai's hidden strategy, preparing the ground. Do you know what a samurai's very first step was before any confrontation? Arranging the field. Miyamoto Musashi, renowned as Japan's greatest swordsman, once spoke a phrase that resonates across all areas of existence. Victory comes to those who lay the groundwork beforehand. And here's an overlooked truth about discipline, productivity, or motivation. You don't fail because you lack strength. You fail because the conditions you're fighting in are stacked against you. Consider this example. If your workspace is cluttered with interruptions, phone buzzing, YouTube tabs open, notifications blinking constantly, your brain ends up exhausting more energy fighting off distractions than actually focusing on the work itself. Now, when you clear the space, leaving only what's essential visible, playing some background sounds that aid concentration, even adjusting how you sit or stand, suddenly what once felt heavy begins to flow effortlessly. This isn't some mystical phenomenon, it's neuroscience, it's Kaiojutsu put into practice. You no longer need to push yourself when your surroundings are doing the heavy lifting for you. Research in neuroarchitecture has shown that messy environments can raise cortisol, the stress hormone, by as much as 32%. This dramatically reduces our capacity to concentrate and make sound decisions. Now take out a pen and paper or bookmark this video, because what I'm about to share could genuinely reshape how you take action from now on. The technique the samurai employed during combat, and which you can now incorporate into your daily life, involves 5 straightforward stages. Write these down. 1. Mindful awareness. Whenever that wave of resistance hits, that impulse to delay, to avoid the task, pause, breathe, and simply observe. What sensations arise in your body? A clenched chest, stiff neck, the urge to check Instagram. Simply recognizing what's happening begins dissolving half the resistance already. 2. Translating the resistance. Now, ask yourself this. Is this resistance tied to method? Is it related to time, or is it linked to purpose? Based on your answer, you adapt your approach. If it's method-related, switch up how you're doing it. If it's time-related, shift your schedule. If it's purpose-related, maybe that task has no place in your life anymore. 3. Intentional environment setup. This is where you declare open war on anything distracting. Remove everything that doesn't serve you. Phone on airplane mode, social media block, website blockers activated, headphones on with focused music, desk cleared for only what's essential. Your surroundings must be so supportive that getting to work becomes easier than giving in to procrastination. 4. The smallest possible action. If you tell yourself, I'll study for 3 hours straight, your brain panics. But if you instead say, I'll simply open my notebook and write 1 sentence, the resistance vanishes. The secret is this. Make it so ridiculously small that refusing becomes impossible. Starting alone accounts for 80% of completing any task. 5. Maintaining momentum. Once you're in motion, keep going. Use focused intervals of 5 to 35 minutes followed by brief rests. Close the gaps where procrastination tends to sneak in, and monitor your progress. Seeing forward movement triggers an automatic loop of motivation. Studies published in the Journal of Applied Psychology indicate that individuals employing short, timed work intervals, such as the Pomodoro method, are 42% more likely to finish complex tasks than those who attempt long, uninterrupted stretches without breaks. And here's a subtle point that escapes most people. The authentic strength of Kaiojutsu. It's not about pushing yourself to work harder, it's about enabling yourself to work with ease. Once you've mastered this approach, you'll realize something eye-opening. Productivity isn't really about exertion, it's about harmony. Most people spend their lives trying to compete in a game where the rules are fixed against them. But what if you could change the game entirely? What you've discovered here today isn't merely another productivity hack. It's an entirely different lens for viewing yourself. You're not broken, you were never truly lazy. What you've always called laziness was simply a signal pointing to misalignment. And once you learn to truly listen to that signal, to comprehend what it's communicating, something extraordinary occurs. Movement becomes effortless once again. Effort stops feeling like a burden, and what once seemed like a daily struggle becomes ease, clarity, and purpose. Change never arrives through a giant leap. It begins with 1 tiny step, 1 pause, 1 question, 1 minor environmental tweak. And as you repeat these small actions day after day, you gradually build a new rhythm of living. A rhythm where you act not out of duty but from understanding. Where you no longer have to push yourself because your own path begins pulling you forward. And now I ask you, what will your first small step be?